budget by the UK Labour government was a sad realisation that we are in for a painful 5 years, or one term, shall we say. This must surely be described as a budget of broken promises, with a plethora of measures that contradicted their own manifesto pledge by the Right Honourable Sir Keir Starmer, the Prime Minister. He misled, he lied, and he failed to deliver what he had promised the electorate in writing, in his manifesto, whilst betraying our country, its people, and in particular the people of Wales. Most concerning for Wales, of course, is the unprecedented increase in the tax burden. So much for Welsh Labour's constant criticism of the previous Conservative government. Yes, they were in power for the last 14 years. Thank goodness. A government that saw a growth in our economy during a Brexit transition and a global COVID pandemic, the war in Ukraine, and faced up to the shocking crisis we are now seeing in the Middle East. When Labour came into power, they took over the fastest growing economy in the G7. Inflation down to its lowest level, interest rates for those with savings increasing. We are now facing, as a result of this budget, a tax burden that is now projected to reach 38.2% of GDP by 28-29, the highest level since the late 1940s. This is largely a result of a £25 billion increase in national insurance, affecting both the employers and workers too, because the burden gets passed down to employees through lower wages. The budget's own architect, the Right Honourable Rachel Reeves, explained it will mean that businesses will have to absorb some of this through profits, and it is likely to mean that wage increases might be slightly less than they otherwise would have been. Already, my business owners in Aberconwy take home much less than the national median rate. This policy is going to exacerbate regional economic disparities and drive more Welsh workers toward economic hardship. The OBR has warned that this budget is likely to stoke inflation further by keeping it above the 2% target until 2029. This will have catastrophic consequences for living standards across Wales. With the cost of living still high and inflation now on the rise, household budgets will be squeezed even more, making it more challenging for families to cover everyday expenses, increasing reliance on welfare services. Maybe that's what you're happy with, and placing further strain on already stretched resources. The fairy tale that two Labour governments would lead to a more Wales-focused agenda is utterly debunked by this budget. Yesterday, I witnessed here the First Minister and the Cabinet Secretary for Finance trying to justify this shambolic first attempt of a budget. At a time when we face energy insecurity, there has been no commitment to the Wilver project, which was well underway by the previous UK Conservative government. There is no commitment. There is no commitment for HS2 consequential, despite all the jumping around that Welsh Labour and Plaid Cymru have done.
I'd like to hear her contribution, and it's actually her backbenchers that are making so much noise I can't hear her.
Yeah, behave.
So please let us all have some quiet to hear it.
Yeah, and no commitment to improve the North Wales main line. Yeah. Ironically too, the only place they do seem to be teaming up is to double down on the attack of our farmers. A callous commitment to extract funds from hard-working farming families, many of whom lack the liquidity to cough up a 20% inheritance tax and will be forced to sell their land to meet their obligations. Can we just be serious for a minute? It has seen the tragic instance of one farmer taking his own life in despair at the prospect of this budget. Labour's economic plans, characterised by rising taxes and increased borrowing, threaten both immediate economic stability and long-term growth. The OBR has downgraded growth by 0.7% over the next 5 years, and debt is now projected to reach £3 trillion within 2 years. That's £3 million. The budget's effects on inflation, investment and real wages mean that Wales, despite its ambitions and resilience, will be left more vulnerable to both economic and environmental setbacks. During the gloated... Right, OK. We are now left with the challenging task of mitigating the impacts of this budget. Yesterday, you were really pleased that you put in all this money into the public sector, it would grow the economy. The only way you grow the economy is by supporting your businesses who employ more workers, who pay more tax. That tax pays for your public services. End of. It's a disastrous budget, and I, for one, will never support it. See you.
Evan David.